In Gone with the Wind, the slaves were treated with respect and even seemed equal with their masters at points. For example, Mary and Scarlet get in an argument over whether Scarlet should eat before a party or eat a lot during a party because it was not ladylike for a girl to have a big appetite and eat in a public setting. At one point in the movie, Scarlet slaps Miss Prissy for lying to her about her ability to birth a baby. This could seem more realistic, except Scarlet also slapped two white people, so the fact that she slapped a slave becomes somewhat irrelevant. Overall, the slaves in Gone with the Wind seem to be treated with respect and seem to be almost on an equal level with their masters. Also, the field slaves were handled by an employee of the masters, and a lot of times the employees would not treat the field slaves well and would beat them or mistreat them. The house slaves in Gone with the Wind could call their masters Mrs. O'Hara, for example, but the field slaves could only call them ma'am or sir. The treatment of field slaves back in the 1800s was very poor. In fact, one could say that we treat our dogs better than they treated their slaves. The house slaves, however, were treated with more respect in the movie and in real life. Overall, I would say that the slave treatment in Gone with the Wind was much better than the slave treatment back in the 1800s. In Gone with the Wind, which takes place in Atlanta, Georgia, they swept the Yankees north towards Virginia, and when they learned that there would be a deciding battle in Gettysburg, Pennsylvania, they were eager and ready for what they thought would be a victory. In real life, the situation was fairly similar because the Confederates were winning nearly every battle leading up to the Battle of Gettysburg, and they were excited and eager for victory. Unfortunately for them, they were sadly mistaken and lost. In conclusion, the way that Gone with the Wind portrayed the battles in the Civil War was fairly accurate. Towards the end of the movie and towards the end of the war, after the Battle of Gettysburg, the Yankees were overtaking Atlanta, and people were frantically fleeing the city. All that was left in the end were ashes and dust. Also, once the Yankees took over, they rose the taxes. According to history, General Sherman's march through Georgia to the sea was 300 miles long and 60 miles wide as they destroyed factories, bridges, railroads, and public buildings. Overall, the portrayal of the Civil War and the Yankees sweeping through Georgia was very historically accurate in Gone with the Wind. According to Birth of a Nation, Lincoln was shot in the back of the head by John Wilkes Booth during Act 3, Scene 1 of Our American Cousin, which was a funny play, at 10:13 p.m. on April 15th, 1865. From my sources, I gathered that Lincoln's assassination happened pretty much exactly as it was portrayed here in the movie. The only thing to add is that John Wilkes Booth worked at the theater either as an actor or a janitor, so he knew the ins and outs of the theater and knew when everyone would be laughing, so it would be the loudest part in the theater, so his gunshot would be disguised or muffled. Overall, the movie's depiction of Abraham Lincoln's assassination was historically accurate. From the way John Wilkes jumps from Lincoln's private booth yelling something to the way he escapes on horseback. In The Birth of a Nation, the representation of the KKK is completely distorted. In the movie, Thomas Dixon attempts to make the KKK appear as heroes who are saving the white people during the Reconstruction of the Civil War. The movie falsely portrays the blacks as dominating Southern whites and even forcing themselves upon the white women. In reality, during Reconstruction, not only did Southern whites dominate the blacks, but they also were violent toward the black women. The KKK was a terrorist group, not a group of saviors as the movie presented them. Thomas Dixon later confessed that the purpose of his film was, and I quote, to revolutionize Northern audiences that would transform every man into a Southern partisan for life. I'll repeat it. To revolutionize Northern audiences that would transform every man into a Southern partisan for life. In other words, he wanted to recruit Northern whites into the KKK. He accomplished this mission because, in the end, the movie was used by the Ku Klux Klan as a successful recruiting campaign that brought in millions of members. My research also showed that The Birth of a Nation was based mainly upon a book called The Klansman. I feel that this movie was from a very southern and extremely racist point of view. That's it, right? Okay. Um. Oh yeah. That's it.